Thank you, Dr. Arnett. Well, the title of this session is Managing Your Child's Screen Time, the subsection that I have. And the great analogy for me that made sense about this topic, the topics seem to change over time, but I remember fatherly advice I was given by my dad regarding finances, that you're going to have to learn in life as a young man to manage your money and your money not manage you. And you want to have a car, and you want to own the car, but you don't want the car to own you. And so to speak, it takes up so much of your budget, and you're stressed out and anxious. Well, I think with technology, what a great asset that we can have in our lives. But could it be possible, if we're not careful, that technology could start to manage us? So we love to talk about accessibility. It's one of the strategic goals of our school district, is having access to opportunities, including through instructional technology. But we do believe there's a danger of over-accessibility. And that could be one of the things that we're starting to see. You can't hardly turn anywhere on any given day, and if you're really kind of paying attention to the news, that we're starting to hear some things that are potential game changers, dangerous things about over-accessibility, some negative habits that could come out for any of us, not just young people, but for adults. So let's talk about how phones might be trying to change us. If we go to the next slide, Simon Sinek is a world-renowned organizational consultant, author, speaker. He's going to be speaking at our National Principals organization later this year.
We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good. Right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends.
Can you see if you can start that over from the top so we get the full context?
Because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right?
All right, let's try that again.
We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive, right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down.
So the point well taken there is just the addictive nature, and if we're honest with ourselves as adults, to be off of our phones. They're just so addictive to just be trolling for information. So the approach that we have to have is one that we love to use at the junior high and in our district, of the go-kart analogy, that we have to have a scaffolded, gradual release of responsibility, and not every age group, including children and adolescents, need to be at the same level of accessibility. There needs to be management, because if we don't learn to manage the screen time and help our children increasingly do that, a teenager can drive their own go-kart. But there's boundaries around a go-kart track. At the junior high, we have 7th and 8th graders, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. And we know any of them are physically capable, if we gave them the keys to the car, of a car on the lot. They could drive a car physically down the hill off Buccaneer Boulevard and out onto the streets of Branson, but it wouldn't be long because of a lack of life experience. They would get into trouble. But if you put them behind the wheel of a go-kart with padded boundaries, with a governor on it, if they act up and they're breaking up the rules, you can shut the thing down. It only goes so fast. But for children, for sure, they need guidance. They need a trusted adult there next to them, managing the experience. And I believe that's why we're here tonight, to talk about some valuable things. And then, I don't know why I threw that last one in there, but as an adult, you're able to function and manage. But let's look at some of the things that come with screen time. These are some of the things that we've seen in our modern society. The numbers are just alarming, the amount of time that adults are spending on screen time, but 3 times the amount of information we consume daily as we did in 1960. 61% of people can't ignore their electronic devices. They check them within the hour after getting an email or a text. 50% of people check their work email outside of work, including weekends and vacations. 61% of people, this is a big one that's coming out. We're hearing, it's just bona fide research. The amount of depression and mental anxieties increasing over social media use. That's proven research now. The number of Facebook users and what they're worried about anxiety levels. 3 out of 5 people spend more free time on their computer than with their significant other. And there's statistics everywhere. And what's showing as a society, we're not managing the technology. It seems like it's starting to manage and take over us. So we have to be able to role model this, which is where we're going with the next slide. In conclusion, before I hand this off to Detective Arnett, it's not uncommon. You've seen this picture, right? Those are tweens. Those are the preteens. Now here's our teenagers. Here's some adults, though. They're engaged. They're working together. This is one of the big reasons we want to advocate for having these meetings, is we have to learn that we need to be in the moment, engaged with whatever we're doing. Maybe it's family time. Maybe it's the collaboration that's taking place at school. Maybe it's our work environments. I'm thankful that I know, and it's expected often, I can walk into a leadership meeting and we have a leader that says, close your lids, let's have our phones off. Because we can fully engage and get to the deep thinking that's required to see excellent school take place if we're all engaged in something else rather than each other. So we need to be in the moment, unless you're like Cookie Monster, and then you just have a cookie. So I hope this helps set the table for why we need to manage. There's a lot of different reasons, but being able to be fully in the moment with each other, no matter what environment that is, that's so crucial. And I'm going to turn it over to Detective Arnett.
Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm Detective Arnett, work for the Branson Police Department. I've been with the department for about 11 years, and about 7 of those have been in back-end investigations. My main focus with the department is sex crimes and crimes against persons. That also includes child abuse and child sex crimes. The department was fortunate enough to send me to several trainings in reference to social media and cell phone and forensics, as far as computers and cell phones go. Recently, I partnered with the Secret Service, and I am one of the few forensic examiners for the Secret Service for the Missouri District. So some of the topics that we're going to cover during this course is going to be Missouri law that pertains to cell phone use in reference to a juvenile versus an adult male. Is it flirting or is it felony? We're also going to get into that. We see a lot of that. Online predators and then sex trafficking. And I think the sex trafficking is actually going to kind of open your eyes a little bit. So in the state of Missouri, the age of consent is 17 years old. So 16 and below, you're still classified as a juvenile. And what we typically see, especially in the junior high, is kids sharing photographs, nude photographs with one another. So that brings us to our next topic. What is sexting? Sexting is the sending of photos or videos with an electronic device, tablet, iPad, cell phone, something to that effect. In 2014, a study was conducted. 40% of kids said that they were sexting. 40%. That's quite a bit. So let's get into the sending. A lot of what we see, and like I said, in the junior high, is, for instance, a 17-year-old is dating a 16-year-old. 17-year-old persuades the 16-year-old to take a suggestive nude photograph, video, And the 17-year-old, it's then sent to the 17-year-old. You're looking at a Class B felony right there, and possibly having to register as a sex offender. We see a lot of that. Also, what we see is the kids tend to share that photograph with one another. If we go back one. I'm sorry, go forward. Thanks. So 17% share the messages they received with one other person. And 55% share that image with other people. So you can see how those images, videos and images, spread like wildfire. And it is very difficult for law enforcement to track that down. And of course, like I said, 70% say that they have sent nude images to their significant other, girlfriend, boyfriend. And 15% said that they have sent a nude image or video to someone that they've never even met, except for online. It's quite a bit. That's 15% too many. So how many have seen To Catch a Predator, Chris Hansen? Okay. 1 in 5 U.S. teens have received unwanted sexual solicitation on the internet. They're out there, guys. I mean, they become the friends. They become basically your teen's best friend. That's how they get into their lives. And only 25% of that told an adult. 16% of teens considered meeting someone they've talked to online only. And 8% actually did meet that individual. So some characteristics of an online predator is they tend to groom the individual that they're talking to. Tell them life on the other side with them is a lot better than where they're at now. Sometimes they'll buy them things, iPads, cell phones, so that way they can communicate directly with them. They're also very manipulative and controlling. They want control over that child. They have control, they have custody of that kid. So let's kind of get into some sex trafficking talk here. Go ahead and go to the next one. This video that's coming up is
when my daughter Hope was young,
Dr. Phil.
she was a straight A student.
And
I
this
was
is
a
real
normal,
life
regular
event.
kid. I loved to do theater. I loved soccer and cheerleading.
Hope was filled with innocence, joy, and ambition.
When I was 14, my whole life changed.
My daughter Hope was kidnapped by sex traffickers. Hope was forced into prostitution.
It all started because I posted on a social media site that I hated my mother. A woman messaged me back telling me that I could go stay with her and we'd go partying. She showed up within the next 45 minutes and I was gone.
The suspects target girls who post comments about a negative home life on social media sites and chat rooms.
The 14-year-old, oh, I hate my mom. She doesn't understand me. I can't wait to get out of here.
That's how police say William Jacobs and Shayla Williams met a young North Texas victim who was just 14 years old.
I walked into the motel room. I see a man sitting in the corner. The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Take off your clothes so we can take these pictures." And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna take my clothes off. He said, "So you wanna do this the hard way?" He hit me a couple times and after that I was out like a light. I woke up in the closet. The closet that I was in was about the size of me right here. After they took me out the closet, they took crushed up pills and they forced them down my throat. After they force fed me pills, I would try to move my body, but I couldn't pick myself up. They made me feel catatonic. After they drugged me, I had my first client.
Hope says she knew if she wanted to make it, she had to find a way to cope.
In order to survive my kidnapping, I had to create an alter ego. They told me that my name wasn't Hope anymore, it was Sophia. So that's the name that I took on. Sophia is the girl that walks with her head high. She was the one who dealt with all the clients and the Johns and the beatings. When I was with the traffickers, they never fed me. My source of food would be picking it out of the trash, drinking the water from the faucet. I bit my nails a lot. One time I was taking a shower and he busted it open and beat me with the belt because I locked the door.
The couple is accused of trafficking the teen in 8 different states in only a 3-week period.
The traffickers made me sleep with men in each state. Over 20 men a day. I could never be Hope again after that. I was never going to be the same girl.
So what do you guys think of that? That's actually from the area where my current chief come from in Texas. That's what they do. They basically, the kids will post something on social media. They become their friend. Hey, it's a better life where I'm at. Come with me. The kid takes that leap, goes with them. Then they're trafficked around the U.S. One of the major difficulties that we have as law enforcement in reference to sex trafficking is by the time we know about it, they're already 2 states away. They're just here for just a brief moment.
I love to do theater. I love soccer and cheerleading.
Hope was filled with innocence, joy, and ambition.
When I was 14, my whole life changed.
My daughter Hope was kidnapped.
.417 magazine did a report last year in reference to sex trafficking. This is a heat map of reports of sex trafficking in Southwest Missouri. You can see the dot, the lowest part of the screen is Branson. I will tell you, it is in Branson. It's just very hard to investigate. So in 2017, 420 cases were reported of sexual trafficking. 19% of those involved minors. We need to watch what our kids are doing online. Social media, phones. Kids these days will post stuff about themselves, where they live, on Facebook, on social media. It's easy to find out your current address, who lives there, with online resources, which these people know. So I will be around for questioning. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. If you want to contact me at any point in time, there's my direct office line and email. Feel free to contact me. I'd be more than happy to speak with you.
Thank you, Detective Arnett. Detective Arnett has done a great job of partnering with the school district on several situations that have required his expertise. We really appreciate all that he does in working with the district as well. These slides here that I have for you all have more to do with our managing of the screen time at home. What are some of these are very common sense strategies that sometimes are just difficult to state sometimes. We're also going to talk about specific types of apps and ways that we can go about filtering and monitoring and keeping track of those things from the parental side, okay? Because these are all items that are outside of the school's control. Students come in with cell phones, they come in with tablets, they come in with devices that have these apps loaded onto them, okay? Most of the time, they're purchased by their parents. There are some students who are a little bit older. And one thing I want to be very clear on with this is that I feel like this whole notion of what we're talking about here in managing screen time and technology and cell phone use and mobile devices is basically, it's like trying to tame the Wild West. We are on this kind of frontier with all of this, and I think this has gotten a little bit further out in front of what we're actually maybe possibly wanting to go on, okay? Things are coming at us so quickly, we cannot keep up with the pace of technology a lot of times, and the biggest thing that we have to learn here is to stay educated on things, okay? Also, I'm going to talk about some things at home. I've got a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old at my house who have the same draw to this type of technology as your kids do, okay? And they have, there's things that we do, we don't get it right every time, okay? There's things that I'm putting up here that were a gut check for my wife and I, okay, and how we work these things with our own 2 children, okay? So I don't want you to think that this is us dictating to you all as parents. These are tips, these are suggestions. They're research-based and they're good ones. We're not getting these from just Joe Schmo down the block, but at the same time, this stuff here are just good conversations to be having as a family and including your children in these conversations. A few of the items that have become much better here in the recent, in some of our newer phones and devices with some of the updates are really good parental controls. You've seen parental controls on televisions for years, okay? These devices that are out there in the hands of kids, from iPads to cell phones, should have had this type of parental control access on there prior to a kid ever getting one in their hands, okay? If you don't know about these things for your children, you need to go into your settings and look up these items. Specifically for the iPhone platform or any kind of Apple device, they have screen time monitoring. It tells you how long you've been on a certain type of app. You can go through and restrict the amount of time that you can go into an app. There's some very powerful tools that can go on here through the new Apple devices. Raise your hand in here if you have an iPhone in your pocket right now. It's a lot of people in here. Okay. Are you all aware of how these things here can work and go in there and observe some of these things? These items were not on previous Apple phones and software updates, but they are coming out now. Okay. And this is a great tool and a resource that they've provided within their settings to be able to check these. The same goes for Androids. It's a little bit different on some of the newer devices. There's some installed apps that you can get to really help block some of these items, but it can limit the amount of screen time. If you don't have these set up on your children's devices, I would encourage you to look into some Apple products that already have it, or some Android products where you can download some other apps, and these things are getting better and better all the time. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the most common apps that we see used at the high school. Okay, whenever I'm going through the commons at lunch, the things that I look down on and see things on their phone, the 2 big ones are going to be Snapchat and Instagram. Okay, I see kids on these quite often. They all have accounts. There are often more than one account per app on your student's device. Okay, if it was me, I can't manage that many. I have a Twitter account, and I have a Branson High School account, and I have a Jack Harris account, okay? Students may have 2, 3, 4 different accounts. They call them Finstas, fake Instas, okay? They have spam accounts. They have other things where they have access and controls that maybe you don't know are out there, okay? Check the number of profiles and the number of accounts on your student's phone. Once again, let's talk a little bit about Snapchat. This one's been around for quite a while, but really the big thing about Snapchat that I know of, and you'll have to pardon some of my ignorance here, is because I'm not totally involved in these, because I don't have any of these apps on my phone, but I do see them quite frequently, and I've had to work through numerous discipline situations that have involved these type of apps. And with Snapchat, the big thing is that you can send a picture, you can send text, and it's gone. It'll disappear, or so they think, okay? Detective Arnett, am I right that there are ways to go back in and retrieve some of that information? That's the thing, is that the old adage of, if you put it in print and you push publish, or you push send, or if you push whatever that is, okay, for those different accounts, it's out there. And they may think it's gone away, but there are ways. Sometimes you have to go through the courts, and they have to put a warrant out for it possibly, or how would they go about doing that, sir? They can subpoena the information. There's other ways that they can get that data back even when the kids think it's gone, okay? So nothing truly goes away. Detective Arnett was talking a lot about sexting. Okay, this is probably the number one way that this is going on with our students, because it's out there, it comes on the other phone and then it disappears. It'll tell you if they capture a screenshot of it, okay, and then they know at that time whether or not that information's out there, or it's still out there, but they think that it's gone away. Okay, this is the number one way that that's going on with the Snapchat. Also, the streaks, very addictive for our kids. They try to go in there and get as many streaks going as they can, and that's another big feature to Snapchat. Another app here that we see quite a bit for our kids, see, I can't even get this clicker to work, much less Snapchat, is Instagram. Okay, Instagram is another one of those type of apps where it's a lot of photo sharing. Instagram is closely involved with Facebook. I think Facebook owns Instagram now, but this is mostly for photos. Okay, you're going to see multiple accounts on this. This is the one that the students are scrolling in. People from my generation, when I was in college, Facebook first came out on a desktop computer. Okay, and there were people that I knew that had Facebook accounts, and it was mostly just college kids. And then I had one for like a couple years, and then my great aunt got one. Okay, so I stopped using Facebook. But with that being said, you know, a lot of people in this generation and here possibly have a Facebook account. Okay, and they use it quite regularly to communicate, to share, and to see what's going on in people's lives. But the kids aren't on there; they're on Instagram. Okay, and that's what they're scrolling through. They're checking on pictures. They're looking at the likes. They're trying to figure out how many likes we received, and that's the things like what Dr. Braun was talking about that's leading into depression and things, because they have to have that dopamine every time they get that like. That's just another hit of that. Okay, and when they don't receive that, that can lead to some of that anxiety and depression. It says one of the interesting things that, and also we'll share all of these with you here, but ranked worst for young people's mental health. I thought that was a very interesting note on there. WhatsApp. This is a messaging app. It's one of the most popular messaging apps in the world. If you're familiar with like a Kik account or Ask FM, WhatsApp is a kind of a secured way to send information via messaging. So you think about it, all right, hey, my child has this phone, but it doesn't have a number. It doesn't have cellular data hooked up to it. You know, they can't text. They can't call. They can do all those things as long as they have a Wi-Fi signal, okay? And WhatsApp is a very, very popular app for these things to go on. They have that, once again, secured information that can go back and forth. You see these messages that can be deleted as well, and sometimes they don't know who's sending it. So these anonymous accounts are what are really getting the kids in trouble, okay? Anytime you have that cloak of anonymity and you can sit back and shoot something to another student that you may not like or have said something to during the day, then that can come back and have no repercussions on that. People get pretty brave, okay? And these are items that you see a lot of cyberbullying take place with as well. So just check out those 3 apps on your student's phone. There's a lot of other apps out there that have to do with that kind of social connection piece. You can see down through there just these lists here. The calculator, this is a new one. Maybe some of you all have heard of the calculator app before. I have the calculator app on my phone. I do addition and subtraction, division, multiplication on it, okay? There are some calculator apps out there where you type in a certain number, and that number is actually a secret passcode that unlocks a digital storage vault. And they can store pictures, videos, messages, any type of file in that calculator. Well, it looks like a calculator app, but it's actually a folder full of items that you had no idea was there, okay? So make sure students don't have a whole lot of calculators on there. Otherwise, they're either really good at math or there's possibly something like this going on. So it's intriguing for kids. The things like this one here, Hot or Not app. Okay, these are all old websites that are then being turned into apps for kids. Another one here, this is the Ask FM. This is the anonymous app where students or young people or anybody can send a message anonymously and have no idea who's sending it. So there's a lot of different types of these out there. It's important to know what's on your student's phone or your child's phone and be able to regulate those and kind of have an idea as to what type of messaging is going on through each of these apps. All right. Here is a shot that I found that you see quite often around here in this area. If you go out to eat in this area, one of our rules as a family is that if we're going to be at a dinner table, then we keep our phones put up, okay? But I am surprised. I've seen young people, 20, 21, 22 years old, out on a date at a restaurant before and hardly even look up because they're on their phones the whole time, Just a very different day and age than what we grew up with, okay? But these screens are here, and they're here to stay, and we have to figure out how to manage them, okay? It's all very different. We talked about the different, generations, millennials, Generation X, and how all that changes in our backgrounds change how we view these types of devices. And my children are growing up in a world, our children are growing up in a world where they have no idea of anything but this type of environment, okay, and being locked into that screen. So it's very important to make sure that we try to avoid this at all costs. Here's some 10 tips that I've got here. And once again, I'm going to talk about some of the more difficult ones for us, but then good common sense tips to avoid overuse of screen time. Okay, our number 10 here, no screen media in your child's bedroom. Okay, we're talking about televisions, computer screens, iPads, phones. Making sure that whenever your child goes to bed at night, that they don't have access to that cell phone, that they don't have access to the tablet, okay? Because while you're in bed sleeping, they may be hooked on that thing all night long, okay? Because the longer that they're on that, less melatonin is being able to sink in because that light is right there in their face, and that affects their ability to go to sleep, okay? They can't sleep, well, guess what's buzzing over there again? Guess what's going off whenever your children are getting a late night text from somebody else, okay? They have access to that. Keep the screen media out. Make screen time a privilege, okay? Make sure that they understand that their amount of time that they get on there is a set, defined amount of time, and encourage other behaviors before you allow them to go to a screen, okay? There's a lot of things that we have to do for our jobs these days, communicating, relating with there's a lot of work that we can do on our cell phones, on our hips, and on devices that we have to carry around with us every day, okay? And a lot of times we want to get off that when we get home, but there's still that draw for young people. Make it a privilege for them. Find a way, We talk about it at my house. Hey, after your chores are done, you can have 10 minutes of watching, a YouTube video that we've got it set aside, certain filters and monitors on that they can go in and look at only certain things with. Okay, so use that to your advantage on some of those things. Make it a privilege. Another one here is encourage other activities. One of my favorite stories talking about cell phones, and once again, I'm telling you all, my 6 and 8 year old have a natural draw to these things. Okay, they're kind of fascinated with them. They like to get them in their hand. They like to stare at them for long periods of time. Okay, especially when it comes to games or videos or things out there. They think it's cool. They want to be a part of it. My wife's family has a place on the White River down in southeast Arkansas. It is nothing special, you all. Okay, but my favorite thing about going down there is that the cell phone reception is horrible. Okay, you can't stream a video. You can't get anything down there besides the bunny ears on the TV. Okay, and when my kids go down there, they're not tugging at my pant leg to say, hey, Daddy, I want to watch your phone, okay? There are so many other things like that around this area that I would encourage you to take part in and to keep the phones put away while you're on those type of activities, okay? Cheap things to do, okay? It's spring in the Ozarks. It's a beautiful time of year. You can go out to State Park and go on a hike right now, and that won't cost you hardly a dime, So there's great things that could be going on besides these devices, encouraging other activities. And when they're filled up with those other activities, they find out sometimes how shallow that screen really can be. That's one thing I wanted to mention as well. Here's one for you. And I've had arguments with parents in my office over this exact statement right here. Get your child's passcodes. Okay? This is on parenting in the digital age. Okay? And I'm talking to a group here who showed up for this and is concerned about this and wants to know more, and we greatly appreciate your partnership in that. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but I need to state it anyway. Okay? You're the parent in this situation, and they're the child. Okay? Get your child's passwords. If they have a password to an app or to get into their phone, okay, when they first get it, at least, I understand the development of trust and how you can trust your children, and then with boundaries, possibly for a while, until they can continue. That's no different than my parents did whenever I was learning to drive. I had certain boundaries. I had the keys available to me at certain times, and we talked about it in Dr. Braun's video. There's no age restrictions on cell phones. There's age restrictions on alcohol, tobacco, driving, but not this. Okay? So get your child's passcodes. This is a conversation that I've had of, well, hey, do you know what's on your child's phone? Well, it's theirs. They bought it. Okay? Well, are they in your house? Are they under your roof? Do you know what's going on this? Okay? And so those are my comebacks in those type of situations, but I would encourage you to know your children's passcodes. Talk to them. Talk to your children about the dangers of being overexposed and that over-accessibility. They understand. They get it. They possibly see it. Okay? Have those conversations. Even at 5, 6 years old, I could have conversations with, hey, I really don't want you watching this thing. I need you to understand why we're restricting you to 15 minutes of this is so that you can go out and do other things and that you're not getting addicted to these things because you see how you can. All right? And that evolves all the way up to whenever they're in high school. Okay? We watched the videos that Dr. Arnett put out there on sex trafficking. Okay? We've seen the highly addictive nature of pornography that our students are having to deal with because it's Pandora's box on there. If there's no restrictions on it, they can go look at anything they want, anytime they want. Okay? So making sure that those things and talking to kids, talk to your kids about it. Let them know what the dangers are. Those parental controls, like we talked about, use those. Those are great tools. They're getting better at those things. Continue to use those. I like this one here. Set aside time to unplug. Okay? About a month ago, I turned off the alerts notifications on the emails to my phone. Sorry, Dr. Swafford. I'll get back to you on that one. But I shut that down. Okay? I check my email now, yes, on my device, but I check it whenever I have time to, not when it tells me to. Okay? I hated sitting at dinner and hearing that thing buzz 6 times. It created anxiety in me. It really did, because I didn't know what was out there. All right? After that dinner time, we would go check it. I would encourage, dinner time, an hour at dinner, 30 minutes at dinner, an hour before bed, especially for young children. Okay? And I'm trying to preach that. I'm preaching something here that I need to apply to myself. Okay? So I want you to know that this goes beyond kids. Set some time aside to unplug. Technology-free zones. You have technology-free zones in your home. Okay? Like I mentioned, that kitchen table would probably be a good place for that. Bathroom is probably a really good place for that. Okay? We have policies against students using cell phones in the bathroom here because of the how they can take photos, and it never ceases to amaze me. Every year, I'll find a picture of a young lady in the mirror, and behind her is the high school bathroom. Dr. Arnett, have you ever seen one of those? Yes, sir, you have. Okay, and it's very hard to police, obviously, but it's still one of our policies. Okay, create those technology-free zones. Do what you all are doing right now. Once again, I applaud you all for coming out tonight, educating yourself on what's on your child's phone, knowing the dangers. Okay, that's the biggest thing you can do. This stuff will always try to stay one step ahead of us. Okay, and I could have talked all day long about the different features and the dangers of those apps earlier. Okay, but they're going to change in 2 weeks. Okay, there'll be an update, software update, and those things will all be different. Okay, so it's very hard to stay up on those things. Know what's on your child's phone and educate yourself as to the different apps and dangers out there. Here's the number one that they said is model healthy electronic use. We talk about modeling up here at Branson High School quite a bit. Okay, not like the runway model. I'm nowhere near that. But I'm talking about the modeling of behavior. Okay, specific character education programs are great. There's some really good ones that I know of, but we believe that character is caught, not taught. Okay, and this here, what bad habits do we have that we're passing on to our kids? My wife and I talked about that several nights ago whenever I was going over some of these slides. Okay, that's the conversations that need to go on. Those are the type of things that they're going to emulate what we do. Okay, and modeling healthy electronic use is the number one thing that we can do for our kids to show them how to behave appropriately online and with the devices they have. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Arnett. He's going to finish this up, and we will move on to some questions that you all may have.